Hey everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday afternoon. Today, as the second Sunday in June, is National Abuse Awareness for Women and Children Day. I didn't know about this day, even though I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I had to look online to see what was going on today and found out that this is in fact once a year a day when we acknowledge those who are suffering often in silence. I agree that we need to have a day to promote awareness, but I also want to reach out to everyone today and encourage you to try to be more aware of those around you every day because the statistics are staggering. The CDC reports that 1 in every 4 women experience domestic violence at the hands of their partner in their own home. They're being abused. And those reports are referring to physical violence. They don't even cover the additional numbers of women who don't report the violence or whose violence does not come with physical bruises but is an emotional and psychological violence. And while some people will dismiss that as not really being domestic violence, all of the clients I've ever worked with who have been victims of domestic violence, whether they've suffered bruises, broken bones, been threatened with being choked to death, been dragged across the street by their hair, whatever the physical experience they've had, every one of them have given me the same report that the psychological and emotional abuse are far worse and last longer and hurt more than the physical bruises. Those are much harder to heal and they render a deeper, more painful wound. So we need to be aware of that as a real form of violence, first of all, and acknowledge it. And also, we need to be aware of those around us that we could be helping. We also have a statistic when we're talking about children who are abused and neglected. 1 in every 7 children are abused. And unfortunately, as far short as we fall of helping women, we've fallen short of helping children as well for many, many years. In fact, we had laws on the books for many, many years to protect animals, but nothing to protect children. They had to come up with some kind of litigation to help save a child who was an orphan being abused in a foster home in the early 1870s, and they had to pull out laws on animal cruelty because there was nothing there to protect children. It's really sad that women and children are often treated with greater maltreatment than we would ever inflict in our culture upon an animal. And we had to draw laws from animal cruelty to protect our children because they were not important enough to protect in the legal system. And that's just really egregious to me. And in fact, even after that case in 1874, the actual Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act was not actually put into law until 1974, about 100 years later. It took us 100 years to get from that case, realizing we don't have enough law, to actually creating the Child Abuse and Prevention Act. So we need to make sure that we're heightening our awareness every day because there are still so many cases, ones that I've seen, where they even had proof that there was abuse going on and proof that this person in the household was inflicting violence and treating children with neglect. And yet these children were given shared custody with their fathers and the abuser. Or even if the mother was the abuser, it doesn't matter whether it's the man or the woman. If the person is an abuser and is demonstrating violence and physical and psychological harm, they should not be given partial custody of this child unsupervised. So this happens over and over and over again. And we are still failing women and children. And I think it's because there's so much of it that people grow numb and they want to protect themselves. They want to protect their hearts because they just can't take it. It's too much, or they feel like they can't help. But we can help. We can help because we can take the time to listen to the person next to us. And chances are there is a person next to you in your family, in your neighborhood, in your church, sitting beside you. 1 in every 4 is a lot of women. 1 in every 7 is a lot of children. and they have faces and they have names. They're more than numbers. And many of them are not reporting this because they don't feel safe. But if we take the time to just simply ask someone and mean it, how are you? You seem tired. Is everything okay? Well, what isn't okay? Is there something that I can help you with, or maybe connect you with a resource? And know your local shelters' hotline numbers, know where they are, know where they're located. On my blog today, I've listed some hotline numbers for national resources, some directories for legal aid. Women who are going through domestic violence separations need special protection because the type of personality who's abusive is not going to respond the same way in court as a normal person. If they are backed into a corner and their ego is threatened, they can become extremely dangerous financially, legally, through the way that they psychologically continue to abuse the children, or even worse, they might murder someone as a result of feeling their ego threatened in that situation. So we need to make sure that we're getting lawyers involved who are trained, who have experience with domestic violence and narcissism, and who know what to do to protect children and women from continued violence when women are trying to escape, when children are trying to get free from abuse. And we over and over again are failing people, but as churches, as neighbors, we can listen, we can care to one person, to two people, to three people. There are always going to be at least one person that you can really make them feel seen, make them feel heard, make them feel like they matter, and it's not their fault. It really isn't their fault. Batterers are experts at charm, manipulation, and psychological brainwashing and abuse. They have very real threats, very real risks that they hold over the heads of women to keep them from getting away. And because our legal system and our child protection systems are not adequate to keep them safe a lot of times, those risks actually are very, very real. So please don't ask women, why don't you get away? There are very good and realistic reasons why they can't get away. We can be the ones who help them get connected to shelters, get counseling, get legal aid set up with those shelter people who know those resources, people who will counsel them to be able to get all their birth certificates, their financial resources, the things that they're going to need to be able to get away safely without having to go back into the home to get those things, to get their children enrolled in school later. So making sure that they have a safe way of getting out, that they have support around them, people that are willing to help them, and if they can't get out the first time, being able to be willing to listen the second time and not dismiss them because they didn't get away the first time. Because those batterers have brainwashed them. It's very difficult to understand what that process is like, but it is a very psychologically debilitating and demoralizing process. So please be understanding and compassionate as much as you possibly can, and connect people to the available national and local resources. Know what they are in your area, and be willing to have them with you at all times. Those are a lot of people. It's very likely that someone close by in the near future will need those numbers. So I'm glad that you're here today. Thank you for watching. I would appreciate you reading the blog and checking out those resources so that you can have them handy when you need them. And I hope that you have a blessed and wonderful rest of your Sunday and rest of your week. Bye-bye.